Hey guys, it's Retro Rose here, and welcome back to another Mushy Monday. We play cute and cozy games. Again, if you are new here, my name is Retro Rose. I play a variety of games from indie horror, cozy, puzzle, action, adventure, horror, throwback, a bunch of different genres, just games I love to play. And today we're continuing our Life Now and Forever demo update. This has been such a fun game to play for you guys, and I can't wait for the full game to come out. So, let's just pick up right where we left off. You were at home sitting on a lumpy chair that tried its best to be a shade other than tan, which it was. It needed a good lawyer to call itself cream orange or pale yellow. The building creaked without anybody doing anything. A ticking and talking tapped at the back of your head. The place you lived was sort of the third member of the Smith family. It had its own way of being and long-time quirk, while still taking after the parent and sister it received. In the time you'd lived there, you'd added a few of your own nicks and scratches to the house. Some of the old furniture was replaced with brand new old furniture from the local antique store and thrift shop. The wall clock was from the former, and the lamp was found at the latter. You said once you couldn't tell the difference between what was sold in those places, it was ancient either way. However, the gap in quality between the two was easy for you to see. Your wondering gaze went down towards the decorative branches in the vase, a cold fire of brown-red leaves, another sign of autumn. From there, you kept going until your focus was finally back on what you were doing. The tabletop was piled with books, packets, pencils, and stuff, and it magically all had to fit into a singular bag, plus leave room for lunch. You began packing for school tomorrow. It wasn't any normal day of school. It was your first day, and it wasn't a normal start for a new year either. It was ninth grade. You were a high school freshman. Ma impressed upon you what an accomplishment it was. If the learning system was a triathlon, you were out of the water, off the bike, and lining up to begin the race. Your mom wasn't especially sporty herself, so she offered an alternative that if this was a movie or a book, the third act would be just beginning. That was the best part. For as much as Ma hyped it up, your transition into the highest level of public schools wasn't as immense as it was for the other 14-year-olds. You've been attending Riverview Peak since the 6th grade already, with its gold, black, and navy official colors and beloved freshwater otter mascot. The district of Golden Grove was small enough that middle school and high school shared a building. Oh, wow. This would have been a much better new year if it could have gone somewhere else. You nudged a 20-page schedule between two textbooks, hoping it wouldn't get completely crumbled. The beginning of classes wasn't the only event happening tomorrow. Golden Grove's middle and at the same time high school started slightly differently than its elementary school did. This semester, your first day of school shared the same day as your anniversary of moving here. It'd been 3 years and 364 days since your life became what it is, or what it was. And there was a groan. The house let you know you had company. Ma came out of the kitchen. She kept some distance, staying under the opening arch of the room, and gave the side of her light-washed jeans a pat. Her shirt was a fall floral blouse. Ironically, she looked like a fresh as a spring bloom. My mom's hair kind of looks like that, just not that color. Good morning. Ma had let her hair get longer lately. Besides a trim every few months, it got just keep growing. That was new. Though she still wore her opal wherever she went. Right now, she was having a necklace moment. The stone hanging from her neck looked newly pried from a mine shaft. Not perfect teardrop shape or flawless angles. It was natural. Thinking of her, who was she as a person and who she was to you, you felt you were lucky having a parent like Ma. You loved her. You and her were still the Smith duo, taking life on as a team. In fact, that had only gotten truer as time went by. Since you've gotten old enough to be more of an actual help to her, it was cool. Quick question. If you were going to get your own cell phone, what color would you want? A cell phone? You never had a phone in your entire existence, and your same age neighbors already did. You got their phone at 11, as soon as they were in middle school. It saved Mrs. and Mr. Lynn a bunch of hassle, from all the people who called the house or their own cell phones to only ask about Shiyu. Though these days, Shiyu ignored practically every call they got, including from their parents. Sent it in a text if you want a response. That was their way of life. Tamarak's mom and dad bought her one when she was 13, officially a teenager. It was a sore spot in the Bayamon family. Mrs. Bayamon the elder didn't think the gadget was necessary. There's more of a distraction than anything else, she declared loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. This town was small and safe. She wondered what the younger Mr. and Mrs. Bayamon thought could even happen. After her husband reminds Mrs. Bayamon that Tamarak's main way of communicating with her parents was over the telephone lines, the fighting stopped. He screeched with joy. You finally be able to text with your friends, she chuckled. I'm thrilled that you're excited. I've been saving up. Phones are getting pricier every 6 months, and then there's this monthly fee and so on. Ma didn't expand on the so-and-so, steadily pushing her hand in front of her. Her daughter knew the value of $1 already. You'd never had a chance to not to. But you're in high school now. You should have a phone. High school. That was the Smiths family's milestone for gifting their youth with a phone. Each household on each street had a different answer for the same thing. Of course, I'm taking you to the store with me. I'm not going to choose it for you. I'll have to sneak out of work a bit early for this. We'll need to go to the next town over to get the best selection, and I want this done before tomorrow. Wait, how early was early? You bit your lip and you had plans to see Shiyu and Tamarak. That couldn't wait for another day, either. Tamarak had been on pins and needles wanting to talk to her parents before the start of the school year. She wouldn't so much as look at a phone until you were there. And Shiyu hadn't left their house for days, and you had to go over there to make sure that they were all right. Don't worry, this doesn't mean you've got to flake out on seeing your friends. That's what you're thinking, right? I know you want to see them. I'll swing around to pick you up late afternoon, early evening, thereabout, and you'll have time for it all. Your grin came back in full force. You were about to have a busy day. Thank you, dear. She appreciated it wholeheartedly. Take care. You waved Ma off with a wide arc of your arms. She threw on a yellow cardigan and the most vibrant piece of clothing in her entire wardrobe and went out of the front door. You couldn't hang around much longer yourself. With a whirlwind of motion, you shoved supplies into your bag. You knew what you had to do next, and you had a schedule. Shiyu and Tamarak weren't going to casually be in the same place at the same time, you wished, but no, over the years, you learned how to balance seeing both of your friends. Tamarak wasn't going to call her parents until later, so you were going to go to... Tamarak was hoping to call her parents any minute, so you were going to go to her house first. Soon your pack morphed into a balloon of compressed knowledge, a year's worth of reading and pens and things forced into a single spot, the zipper strained to keep it all in. You knocked on the top, and it felt like a solid mass against your knuckles. Well, you'd worried about how you would carry it later. You left there and left the house. It was cold, obviously it was cold. It didn't stop you. You were focused on your mission, pressing ahead step by step. You cut across the lawn, went through the gate, and stood inside of the cul-de-sac. From there you headed left. The great porch of the Bayamons was stop number 1. You reached the front door of the house and rang the bell. An answer came immediately. Coming, I'm coming, hold your horses. A series of thumps followed the shout. You wrapped your arms around yourself, waiting. The door swung inward. Wafts of perfume and a long, worn-out breath escaped through the opening. The trip down the main hall gotten longer every year as the woman in front of you would swear. Mr. Bayamon was such a cool old lady, and she was still granny to you. She dressed as glamorously as ever, and with a poof blouse and statement belt buckle, that gold double loop acting as her anchor. She always needed something to keep her grounded. Besides, Granny could never be too old to get dolled up. It didn't matter what her knees didn't work the way that they used to, and last hints of blonde had faded from her hair. She'd also had to chop off the ends several months ago, and the split ends had gotten out of control. Though her hair had been so long, removing inches was still plenty left. Pure white strands framed muted red eyes. Granny leaned her cheeks onto the door frame. She shared a smile for her hello. I didn't know you and Tamarak had plans, but that's good, perfect timing. I had told Opal repeatedly how lucky she was to have such a kind-hearted child. I say the same about Tamarak. Lord knows there are some trouble rabble roshers out there that she stopped herself and shook her head. The ribbony bit of her shirt flapped like a flag of surrender. It doesn't matter. You're not here for me to talk your ear off. You're here for your friend. Tamarack is in the backyard of all things. I suggest you go right around the house and get to her. It worked. You may or may not be simply going through the front to the back, but it worked. Have a good day, Angel. Granny shut the door behind her. You turned the other way and hopped off the porch. The Bammon's backyard, you saw it all the time out the windows from your own yard, but it had been ages since you stepped foot there. You didn't because Tamarack didn't. How awkward it would be if you went into her backyard by yourself. Tamarack had gone over every inch of that patch of earth 100 times. There was no magic left to find. She outgrown her childhood playground like a growing tree's too small pot. You shimmied between their mailbox and the bushes guarding your house. Ma kept those trim. They weren't as wild as when you moved in. That didn't mean they weren't small and you weren't a kid anymore. Leaves tickled your chin as you passed by branches, brushing your chest. Your house was psyching you up for the day. You got through that gap and around the corner. Narrow path opened onto the edge of the far-reaching forest. The line between the woods and the backyard was clear. Mr. and Mrs. Bammon had made sure that the land that they were paying for stayed in tip-top form. It didn't matter that people living there only enjoyed its beauty, maybe a couple of times a month. What if the guests saw that their grass was less than flawless form? There was something new there, though. A bag sat neatly on the tabletop. Tamarack's childhood messenger bag had joined the Bammon's collection of antiques that were to be seen, not touched, before it fell apart completely. The new pretty bag could hold just as much as the original. It was also mostly brown again. The strap, top flap, and the bottom support were, but the center was a pastel pink. Mrs. Bammon got it for her lovely granddaughter, and this had reassured everyone that Mrs. Bammon helped. You shifted your focus over to that lovely lady. No, she's so cute. Tamarack sat motionless on the tire swing her grandparents had made her. She had her arms wrapped around the rope tied in a bow, and the tip of her pink boots dragged against the ground. That was where she was staring to, at the dirt. Heavy bangs covered a third of her face. A ribbon delicately hung on the side of her head. Tamarack's hair stayed short. She'd actually had it cut a little shorter than when she was a kid, instead of letting it be a total fluff ball. She styled her strands into soft waves. She hadn't bothered to put on a coat. A purple knit sweater over some kind of lacy trimmed shirt was enough. She had leggings for pants. They looked great. That was Tamarack Bammon, though. You also knew her by her nickname. That was Tamarack Bammon for you. Seemed like this was a glasses day. Wide frames rested against her nose. When Tamarack had to get braces, she insisted on having contacts too. She could not live with both of those at the same time. But Tamarack didn't like wearing contacts either. Contacts were only worth the annoyance if she was going somewhere with lots of people. You walked over the rocky path as she heard you coming. Tamarack glanced up. Tamarack's tense features couldn't stop a smile from spreading over her cheeks. Rose, she's so pretty. Tamarack. She lurched forward with a burst of motion, reaching out towards you. The tire she tangled on swung with that energy. You went over before she could fall further away than where she had begun. You grabbed her hand. Your palms smacked together. She twisted her fingers around yours. Tamarack became suspended diagonally in air. Gravity tried to pull you apart, but you ignored that law of physics for her. You made it. Her hair fluttered in the breeze. Yeah, I gotta be here for you. Are you ready to talk to your parents? She nodded, her jaw set firmly. I'm gonna call my mom. I'll do it fast. Mr. and Mrs. Bammon, the younger, you'd met them. They wanted to see Tamarack's friends the first time they visit. Whenever they visit, since then you'd see them again. You were always with Tamarack. Tamarack gripped your hand hard, narrowed eyes, shoved her eyes nearly closed. Tamarack plucked her naturally bushy brows. We have enough to worry about already. High school starting tomorrow. Who knows what mom might try to bring up if I call by myself. Her words came out frazzled and emphasized in a bunch of different places. Then she sighed. Tamarack unpeeled one of her tightened fists and adjusted the crook of her arm to make sure she didn't fall right out of the tire. Thanks for letting me drag you into this. Tamarack sighed again. Her head drifted lower and lower until her chin rested against the rubber. Despite the unsteadiness of her position, she was now secure. He beamed with as much encouragement as possible. She could do this. It made her grin, a real grin, with her lips parted and everything. Oh, ever since Tamarack had those braces put on, she almost never smiles with her teeth. You knew how self-conscious she was about them, but that rule went away when it was safely just the two of you. But Rose, she rolled her face over, squishing a cheek into the grooves of the tire. No effort was being expended. My phone is in the bag over there. Leggings don't have pockets. She kicked the legs towards the table 10 feet away from her. She swung weakly, twirling her around. Tamarack attempted to keep eye contact with you during the spin. Could you get it for me so I don't have to climb out of this thing, please? Oh, yeah, I could do that. You stay right there. Her hand slipped through yours. Thanks. You're the best friend I've ever had. Tamarack stayed sitting pretty while you fetched her needed tool. If Granny's throne was the green drawing room chair, the tire swing was Tamarack's. You undid the flap of her bag. Inside was a smudge-free smartphone. The screen winked at you with a glint of light. It was ready to be collected. You grabbed it, and in seconds, you needed to lift the phone and close the bag. You took stock of Tamarack's stuff. Lip gloss, hairbands, her wallet tucked into the side pocket, a white box, probably a first aid kit. And there was an open bag of something from the corner store tucked in the corner. It could have been chips or cookies. You couldn't make out the logo. It was just like when you were kids. Besides the wallet, Tamarack never had money growing up. Hey, come on. Come in. You stepped away from the table and passed Tamarack her phone. Thank you. Tamarack scrolled across the screen, and she typed. She put her phone to her ear, waited. Oh, her phone is so cute. It rang repeatedly. Mrs. Bayamon, not Granny, did answer, and you guessed she had anyway. Tamarack's face was suddenly covered by a stiff mask of the real thing. If that wasn't enough of a clue, she started talking. Hi, Mom. Thanks for doing this. Rose is here, too. We've been hanging out. Tamarack stuck the phone in your face any closer, and your nose would have ended the call. Hello. See? Mrs. Bayamon, Tamarack wasn't alone. She would never be on her own as long as you could help it. My mom says hello to you, too. And so your role in this has ended. You've done what you could. The rest was on Tamarack. She bobbed her head while you listened to a list of generally pleasant replies. Yep, that's right, don't worry. She couldn't say for the New Year check-in. The day of class hadn't happened yet. Tomorrow it could be a perfect afternoon, or she could get trapped in a bush and miss the entire thing. From the side of the conversation you got to hear, her mom never strayed from the safe subject of school, which meant there was even less to discuss. The closer Tamarack got to getting to wrap this up, the higher her pitch got. Love you too. Tell Dad I love him too. Bye. Tamarack tapped the red button on her screen with a thumb. Then she collapsed all over the tire. It was like it was a painting with a melting clock. The teachers and YouTubers liked to show. Tamarack's limbs were practically dripping off her. Seeing her that way was wrong. She looked so out of place. You couldn't help but pause there and acknowledge how wonderful it was that Tamarack was still here. Living with her Omi and Opal was meant to be temporary, and it had already been nearly a half a decade. Her parents kept in touch, and they visited, sometimes more, sometimes less. That inconsistency meant that there was never a sense of normalcy around them, no matter how many months go by. As soon as things were calm enough that you thought Tamarack was going to be in Golden Grove forever, her parents would become so re-involved. It was as if they would pack her bags any day. You lived with a thorn stuck in your chest, one that dug in deeper with each passing seasons, no matter what, and every so often got jabbed by the unexpected. I'm wondering if whenever the full game comes out, if we're going to have a situation where Tamarack's parents try to come and get her so they can leave, and either she decides to go or decides to stay, and we witness that. I'm very curious about that. Maybe that has something to do with why Tamarack came across like an outsider. People were holding their breath around her, bracing for when it wouldn't be a false alarm, or when she'd be gone. And you knew that for sure. Tamarack struggled with seeing her own presence in that light she told you about. How much longer would Tamarack Bamon be living right next door? Slowly, Tamarack disentangled herself from the tire swing, one leg coming after the other, not letting go of the rope too soon. Nobody wanted her to get hurt right now. The swing did as it was made to do, swing, but Tamarack got on her feet, and the first thing she did with her freedom was return her phone to her bag. She stood with her back to you, staring at her cell phone for a sudden movements. Her parents would never call back. They wouldn't. They wouldn't text so soon after a chat either, but what if they did? But they didn't. Tamarack twisted her head to the side. You could see her face again, part of it at least. The few inches that weren't covered by her hair or shoulders weren't completely impossible to make out from your point of view. She smiled. That was enough. We did it. Did she say anything about you leaving? No. Those words didn't include what she wanted to happen. How could it? Tamarack had to carry something that she couldn't speak to anyone about, not even to you. She either wished to say goodbye to a life in Golden Grove so she could be with her mom and dad, or she was a child who never wanted to live with her parents, or she didn't care about either possibility. Whatever the truth was, it'd be hard to take, unfair to accept. It was unfair she had to be in this situation. Mr. and Mrs. Bayamon, the parents. You guessed you could separate Mrs. and Mr. Bayamon. You knew from the two you'd barely seen by calling them Dr. Bayamon and one Dr. Bayamon 2. Tamarack's mom and dad were both PhD doctor holders and researchers. They mentioned they were in the process of getting that when you met. At this point, they've gotten their degrees. You wanted to like them, though. They didn't give you a lot to work with. Tamarack tugged at the end of her shirt. You've been quiet for a while. Oh. She made a beeline for the swing. Tamarack darted behind it and held on with both hands. She pushed it towards you. It was the second time she had done that. Here, you can have a turn. It doesn't have to just be me who uses it. Tamarack wielded the tire like it was the steering wheel for her life, and like it was somehow controlled your future too. I could push you, or she leered at you from the other tire. I could spin you. Spin a tire swing? What a wild child. Woo, spin me. I will. But she gotta sit down first. She kept her hold strong. I've got it, get in. You climbed on top with your legs. You climbed on top with your legs crossed around the rope. It was exciting. This is how to use a tire swing. Tamarack cocked the tire to the side. Your head jerked. Whoa, that was your only warning. Then she snapped the swing, and you did a 360 as she hit the tire again and again. Tamarack kept catching the edge of the tire, propelling you into a propeller motion. Your whole world was blurry. Your cheeks pulled away from the rest of your face. A buzz went through your body each time her palm made contact with the rubber. The energy you and her were generating could power the whole neighborhood. I'm getting dizzy, woo. For a moment, all your cares were shaking out of your ears. The breeze filled your ears until a hollow thump did. The swing stopped dead. Oomph. Tamarack hooked her arm through the center, and you held tight to the rope. Tamarack took a hit, but you were the one who got jolted. She didn't budge. Sorry. Following her sideline brought your attention to the house. The back door had opened. Standing in the doorway framed by it, it looked like a life-size vintage photo of Mr. Bayamon. Hello. He gave a tip of a hat to you in the exact same that he did 4 years ago. His jacket hadn't been replaced either. The vest and pants that he wore came from a thrift store. Even parts of the outfit wasn't newly made. Mr. Bayamon's family picked it out for him. Blue to make his eyes pop. Older people love their old things. That was never truer than with Tamarack's grandfather. He was a true constant and a boulder that withstood the erosion of time. His hair couldn't get any whiter. His wrinkles couldn't get deeper, right? He'd already reached elderliness when you met, what you saw in front of him was just a finished version of himself. Mr. Bayamon wouldn't have changed a single thing for the rest of his life if he didn't have a wife and granddaughter who made him do it sometimes in little ways. You still didn't know him. Mr. Bayamon was harmless, and he was your grandparent too. You even started calling him by your own special nickname. Oh. Gramps. Gramps climbed down the miniature set of stairs into the backyard, bracing one knee with his hand and taking the step half at a time. He put both feet on the same level before going down the next one. Gramps was solidly built. That made the risk of accidents more troublesome. If he failed, he'd fall hard. How did the call go? Oh. Tamarack's gaze met yours. This wasn't much of a call, and that had been her goal. A few minutes of small talk with a friend on standby to make certain it never went past that. Tamarack summed it up nicely with a shout. Good. That was a good time to go. You needed you too. You faced Tamarack directly. Hey, I've gotta leave. See you. Huh? You jerked your chin towards the way out. Oh, you're leaving? Okay. So you jump off the swing. It was fun while it lasted. Bye. Tamarack waved you off. Gramps simply watched you walk away. Good day. The backside of the neighborhood was behind you. You marched around the bend, passing your own house and reaching the other end. The second time you came to stand in front of the neighbor's door, you rang the bell. Nothing happened at first. There wasn't an instant reaction Hugh had gotten from Mrs. Bayamon, but the chance of a prompt, adult-like response passed by too. You were left waiting longer than somebody normally had to stand in front of the doorstep. You had no idea what to expect. This could take another few seconds or a few minutes. You might have started banging out here. Your gaze wandered. It landed on the row of shadows stretched across the ground. They came from the railing, but were exactly like the bars of a jail cell. Come on, someone had to answer, right? You had to get in here. You had to see Shiyu. And then the door moved. Finally, someone answered. On the other side was Mr. Lin. He hadn't left for the day, and you were guessing he had some real estating he had to do this afternoon. He did have a coat on. It looked kind of like a biker jacket, and he was kind of a biker, just not a motorcycler. Mr. Lin kept it only half zip, showing his professional button-down shirt and tie combo underneath. That was definitely the man to talk to about buying something that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just look at how the glasses match his eyes and the way he puts his hand confidently on his hip. I'm surprised you hadn't liked him instantly. Mr. Lin opened his lips next to show a grin behind them. Hey Rose, thanks for taking the time to come over. Now you're a visitor of our charming Shiyu, won't mind. He chuckled quietly though. A cloud of concern put an end to, I'm sorry, I know this is random, but I really want to get back to our life beginning and always, because I'm so excited for the other chapters. Anyway, though a cloud of concern put an end to the sunny mood he started with. The Lin parents had been totally shut out by their teen. They had to rely on their neighbor kid completely. You were their only lifeline left. Not even Ren was for sure a thing these days. But you'd wanted to see Shiyu whether they asked that or not. Please come in. Don't let me hold you up. Sure. Their house is so pretty. Mr. Lin moved aside and you passed through the door. Your host followed after, but you got ahead of him after a few steps. Just head up to their room. You know where it is. I'll be here. You didn't stop walking. You didn't want to stay there. It was hard to explain that the way a space could stay so much the same and still be so different. Their living room didn't decide to get spotlessly tidy yesterday because it knew there'd be a guest. It was always like that. But the house didn't feel nice or neat anymore. Somehow it seemed sharp, stiff, and uninviting. Every single time your feet touched the floor, you braced yourself for the crack of eggshells. At the top of the stairs, you got a different kind of jolt. You weren't alone there. Mrs. Lin, she stood in front of Shiyu's door, facing directly towards you. It's good to see you. She had on a quite simple dress, brown from the top to bottom. Her slippers were white. You didn't have to check out the window to see autumn's here. Mrs. Lin displayed the season in action. Her dark blue hair was pulled into a bun, that look even more colors away. It took even more colors away from her. Though that hairstyle did make her earrings stand out. Gold leaves with purple stones. She wore those for years, focusing on her that closely. You notice her mouth pulled into a faint smile. I've been knocking. Mrs. Lynn twisted around to touch the door again. She stared at the wall between her and her child. That must have been exactly how she was before she heard someone coming. You hasn't answered, but they would if they knew you were here. Speaking at the blank wood, she stopped talking to you. To you, your friend is here. She will be coming in. You leaned in, ears perked. It was dead silent. Still, Mrs. Lynn backed away. That was the most Mom could do. She kept that smile for you. You can stay as long as you like. And then she vanished down the way she came. Mrs. Lynn, she was beautiful. You took Mrs. Lynn's place in front of the door, the unmoving door, and the door with not a single sound coming through. You twisted your fingers together, and you'd done this before. You could visit Shiu's room, and Mrs. Lynn said you were going to do it, so. Yep, that's right. Shiu, here I come. You twisted the handle and then pushed the door open. It didn't go smoothly. The frame wasn't busted like your bedroom door. Something was blocking the other side. Okay, Shiu hadn't been spending their time in there cleaning, I'm not surprised. It was a mess. Shiu's personal space was the only part of Lynn's house that had permission to fall into pieces. The room was perfect for a game of I Spy. Your eyeballs were overwhelmed with the amount of stuff in the front of them, trying to pick out any specific thing that would take complete focus. And in the center of this was Shiu themselves. You waded through the shallow sea of abandoned clothes and forgotten note pages. You didn't have to imagine eggshells anymore. One wrong step and you'd crunch something for real. Standing at the side of the bed, you tilted your head straight down. Oh, you made it. You laid on your stomach, face flat against the mattress, feet propped on the pillow. Like their dad, Shiu had a jacket on. Unlike Mr. Lin, this wasn't a sign that they were going someplace. You hadn't been outside in hundreds of hours or something, and you'd bet they had their blue plaid coat on the whole time. Strands of brown hair rested over their shoulders and mingled with the fluffy trim of their hood. They kept a small part of it tied into a ponytail. They found a hairstyle that worked at 10 and stuck with it. Under the mix of faux fur and thick mass of hair, you could see a black line of their neck. Shiu was wearing a choker. A pair of skinny jeans stuck out from the bottom of their oversized coat. You didn't go as far as wearing shoes in bed. They just had socks on. Seeing Shiu from below as something you were used to for years, Shiu was tall in a town. Now, as soon to be high schooler, they were turned out to be an average-sized teen. But you were a short kid, and you were still a short teenager. Shiu multiple inches over you. Some people still called them Autumn, but you didn't. Their names was all you needed. A low moan escaped from between Shiu's lips and the mattress, where they pressed up against. It went on and on until they didn't have air left in the chest. That was a cry for help, if you ever heard one. Hello, Shiu, I broke into your room. Oh no, there's a criminal, I'm being robbed. They twisted their head to the side. Half of Shiu's face appeared, and the other half of their mouth was pulled into a smirk. You didn't need to see the other side to tell that much. The sparkle in their eye made it clear. Hi. Your inside cranked the heat up on 11,000. I'm glad you came over. I've been so busy getting ready for tomorrow and everything. Then been prepping for tomorrow mysteriously. You couldn't believe that. My will is almost finished. You coughed. Okay. Fluttering, their eyes closed. You kicked their legs through the air. They grinned sweet as could be. Rose, I'm leaving you my notes and whatever pages you could find. Alright guys, I'm actually going to go ahead and cut it here. Thank you for joining me on this Mushy Monday for our Life Now and Forever demo update, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.